Hi, my name is Pat, and this is my channel, Book Chat with Pat, and I'm glad that you're here. Today I'm going to be presenting an episode of Poetry Thursday, in which I focus on the life and poetry of contemporary American poet Naomi Shihab Nye. Nye was born in 1952 in St. Louis, Missouri, to an American mother of German and Swiss descent and a father who was a Palestinian refugee. She spent her adolescence in San Antonio, Texas, Ramallah, Palestine, and the Old City in East Jerusalem. She finished high school and attended college in San Antonio, Texas, where she continues to live today. The primary source of her poetry, Nye says, quote, has always been local life, random characters met on the streets, and our own ancestry sifting down to us through small, essential daily tasks. Her mentor was the late poet William Stafford, and like him, she writes about the value of the overlooked, the half-forgotten. Her own personal experiences of living with cultural differences has profoundly influenced her poetry. Nye's work has garnered numerous poetry prizes and awards. She has won 4 Pushcart Prizes. She was awarded the Lee Bennett Hopkins Poetry Award, the Isabel Gardner Poetry Award, and the Robert Creeley Prize. From 2010 through 2015, she was the Chancellor of the Academy of American Poets. The Poetry Foundation named her the Young People's Poet Laureate, a position that she held from 2019 through 2022. In 2020, she was presented with the Lifetime Achievement Award from the National Book Critics Circle. She is affiliated with the Mishner Center for Writers at the University of Texas, and she is the poetry editor for the Texas Observer. Additionally, she's a professor of creative writing at Texas State University. One literary critic, Philip Booth, says of Nye's writing that she, quote, brings home to readers both how variously and how similarly all people live, close quote. She has also always examined in her work global concerns like the Arab-Israeli conflict. After the World Trade Center attacks in 2001, Nye became an active voice for Arab Americans, speaking out against terrorism and against prejudice. Her 2002 volume of poetry, 19 Varieties of Gazelle, Poems of the Middle East, was a finalist for the National Book Award. In a recent interview, Nye spoke about the role of the poet during times of war, crisis, and political division. She addressed specifically the current tragic world events in Gaza. She said, quote, creative work becomes more crucial for maintaining any semblance of sanity. I simply cannot grasp or accept the Stone Age behaviors of nations and the lack of empathy for all humans. Of course, I grieve the violence committed against innocent Israeli people and the wildly oversized vengeance of Israel, supported by the U.S., that followed it. She went on, quote, the role of the poet is to try to keep speaking the truth and shining a little light. The role of the poet is to stand up for human beings whose weeping voices are not being heard. The role of the poet is to make connections. My poems always speak up for humanity. When asked what poetry can do that the media or journalism in general often doesn't or can't do, she said, quote, "Poetry cares. Poetry tries to sing the quiet, subtle stories. Poetry cherishes and protects details. Poetry listens to the ones who are not in the headlines. To be a Palestinian poet right now means caring more than ever about everything that makes us want to write poetry. We are here to love one another, to help, to support, to cherish. Violence gets us nowhere. It is always our job as poets to make more connections. If we feel disenfranchised from official positions, we find ways to belong to one another through human-sized, gentle moves." Closed quote. And now I would like to talk a bit about some of Nye's books that I have, and then read a bit of her poetry. So the first book of hers that I ever owned is Words Under the Words. This is a book of selected poems that was published in 1995. The next book of hers that I came to own is called What Have You Lost? This is a collection of poetry by a variety of poets. And the theme connecting the entire anthology is loss. This book won the 2000 Lee Bennett Hopkins Poetry Award. Another book of hers that I have is called Castaway, Poems for Our Time, and this was published in 2020. In this collection, the unifying theme of all of her poems, and these are all hers, this is not an edited collection, these are hers. The theme of all of these is things that have been cast away or wasted. Trash, time, the planet, people. It also contains at the back prompts for writing. So this is one of the books that came out of her work as poet laureate for young people. And the next book of hers that I have is called Everything Comes Next, Collected and New Poems. This collection contains many of her most popular and well-known poems over the last 45 years in one volume. The poems that I'm going to be reading today are all included in this volume. So, on to her poetry. The first one that I would like to read, the first poem that I would like to read is called Before You Can. Before you can. My Jewish friends are kind and gentle. Not one of them would harm another person, even if they didn't know that person. My Arab friends are kind and gentle. Not one of them would harm another person, even if they didn't know that person. They might press you to drink 45 small cups of coffee or tea, but that would be all. My Jewish friends have never taken my house, my land, herded me into a cell, tortured me, cut down my tree? Never once. My Arab friends have never built a bomb. We respect each other as equals. We look somewhat alike. We laugh similarly. We have never said the other should not exist. So where is the problem exactly? Let's be specific. Who and where and what is the problem exactly? You have to know before you can fix it. Next, I would like to read her poem entitled Blood. Blood. A true Arab knows how to catch a fly in his hands, my father would say, and he'd prove it, cupping the buzzer instantly while the host with the swatter stared. In the spring, our palms peeled. True Arabs believed watermelon could heal 50 ways. I changed these to fit the occasion. Years before, a girl knocked, wanted to see the Arab. I said we didn't have one. After that, my father told more stories. Shihab, shooting star, a good name, borrowed from the sky. Once I said, when we die, we give it back. He said, that's what a true Arab would say. Today, the headlines clot in my blood. A Palestinian boy dangles a toy truck on the front page. Homeless fig, this tragedy with a terrible root is too big for us. What flag can we wave? I wave the flag of stone and seed, table mat stitched in blue. I call my father. We talk around the news. It's too much for him. Neither of his two languages can reach it. I drive into the country to find sheep, cows, to plead with the air. Who calls anyone civilized? Where can the crying heart graze? What does a true Arab do now? Next, I'd like to read Before I Was a Gazan. Before I was a Gazan, I was a boy, and my homework was missing. Paper with numbers on it stacked and lined. I was looking for my piece of paper, proud of this plus that, then multiplied, not remembering if I had left it on the table after showing to my uncle or the shelf after combing my hair. But it was still somewhere, and I was going to find it and turn it in. Make my teachers happy. Make her say my name to the whole class before everything got subtracted. In a minute. Even my uncle, even my teacher, even the best math student and his baby sister who couldn't talk yet. And now I would do anything for a problem I could solve. And I'm going to wrap this up with two of her most famous poems, most often quoted and read. This one is called Gate A4. And please forgive my pronunciations when I read the dialogue of a Palestinian woman. Gate A4. Wandering around the Albuquerque airport terminal after learning my flight had been detained 4 hours, I heard an announcement. If anyone in the vicinity of Gate A4 understands any Arabic, please come to the gate immediately. Well, one pauses these days. Gate A4 was my own gate. I went there. An older woman in full traditional Palestinian embroidered dress, just like my grandma wore, was crumpled to the floor, wailing, "Help," said the flight agent. "Talk to her. What is her problem?" We told her the flight was going to be late, and she did this. I stooped to put my arm around the woman and spoke haltingly. "Shu dawa, shu biduk, habibiti, stani, shwe, min, fadlik, shu bit siwi." The minute she heard any words she knew, however poorly used, she stopped crying. She thought the flight had been canceled entirely, and she needed to be in El Paso for major medical treatment the next day. I said, "You're fine. You'll get there. Who's picking you up? Let's call him." We called her son. I spoke with him in English, saying I would stay with his mother till we got on the plane. She talked to him. Then we called her other sons just for fun. Then we called my dad, and he and she spoke for a while in Arabic and found out, of course, that they had 10 shared friends. Then I thought, just for the heck of it, why not call some Palestinian poets I know and let them chat with her? This all took up 2 hours. She was laughing a lot by then, telling about her life, patting my knee, answering questions. She had pulled a sack of homemade mamoul cookies, little powdered sugar, crumbly mounds stuffed with dates and nuts, from her bag, and was offering them to all the women at the gate. To my amazement, not a single woman declined one. It was like a sacrament. The traveler from Argentina, the mom from California, the lovely woman from Laredo. We were all covered with the same powdered sugar and smiling. There is no better cookie. And then the airline broke out free apple juice from huge coolers, and 2 little girls from our flight ran around serving it, and they were covered with powdered sugar too. And I noticed my new best friend, by now we were holding hands, had a potted plant poking out of her bag, some medicinal thing with green furry leaves. Such an old country traveling tradition. Always carry a plant. Always stay rooted to somewhere. And I looked around that gate of late and weary ones and thought, this is the world I want to live in, the shared world. Not a single person in that gate, once the crying of confusion stopped, seemed apprehensive about any other person. They took the cookies. I wanted to hug all those other women too. This can still happen anywhere. Not everything is lost. Excuse me. And finally, probably her most frequently read, studied poem, Kindness. Before you know what kindness really is, you must lose things. Feel the future dissolve in a moment, like salt in a weakened broth. What you held in your hand, what you counted and carefully saved, this must go, so you know how desolate the landscape can be between the regions of kindness. How you ride and ride, thinking the bus will never stop. The passengers eating maize will stare out the window forever. Before you learn the tender gravity of kindness, you must travel where the Indian in a white poncho lies dead by the side of the road. You must see how this could be you. He too was someone who journeyed through the night with plans and the simple breath that kept him alive. Before you know kindness as the deepest thing inside, you must know sorrow as the other deepest thing. You must wake up with sorrow. You must speak it till your voice catches the thread of all sorrows and you see the size of the cloth. Then it is only kindness that makes sense anymore. Only kindness that ties your shoes and sends you out into the day to gaze at bread. Only kindness that raises its head from the crowd of the world to say, "It is I you have been looking for," and then goes with you everywhere, like a shadow or a friend. So that's a little bit about the contemporary American poet Naomi Shihab Nye. As always, I thank you for watching. I hope that you're doing well. I'll speak with you again soon. Take care.